These are 8 homes you should not buy. That's right, as a real estate agent who has helped over 100 people buy right here in the suburbs around Columbia, South Carolina, I've seen a lot. So I'm gonna give you the insight of the homes that you should avoid. Homes that had buyers running the other way. Homes where buyers wasted money on inspections only to walk away from the house. And unfortunately, homes that had buyers calling back after less than a year desperate to sell. And the last one, to be honest, might surprise you because it may be on your list of your favorites. New construction homes. And as we get started, I'm not trying to be biased here with any of these. I mean, I currently live in a home we bought as new construction, and I would do it again. And yes, I've owned a resale too. But I often talk to people and they tell me how much the builders suck nowadays. And they can't stand what they call cookie cutter neighborhoods. And now look, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but to me, after looking at thousands of homes, a lot of it has to do with foliage. But either way, to get back on point, these are not custom built homes. These are production builders. So if that is what you are looking for, these are not for you. Now, again, some of the builders will let you make adjustments to the house, and other builders, it's an absolute no. And they don't care. They'll watch you walk away if you say, I'm leaving if you don't let me do this. Now, going back, even the ones that do let you make customizations, it's not fully custom, right? They're gonna have different floor plan options, different color options, but you can't take it outside of their parameters. Just because you want an extra 2 feet in the living room, or you wanna move a wall, or add a 3-car garage, doesn't mean it's an option that they offer. They may, but again, this isn't a custom house. Some of them are gonna have a little bit more character, a little more upgrades, and others are gonna be as builder grade as it gets. And the price point will kind of clue you into which part that lands on. I mean, they come in all shapes and sizes and different styles, so there are options within. But the fact still remains the same. If you're looking for something more custom, want to make changes, want more option, you're not looking for something that is production new construction. And if you want to talk quality, hit me up. I dive into more details and reputation with my clients. Custom homes. Look, people love the idea of building a custom home, buying some land and building that dream home exactly how you want. But I want to be very transparent when I say this. This is not a budget-friendly option. If you think you can go and custom build a home cheaper than the production builders, you'll be in for a surprise. I mean, I recently made a video breaking down the numbers, and unless you are okay with going kind of builder grade on a small lot, expect 500,000 plus. But on average, you're probably looking at closer to 700,000 and up. I tell people when it comes to custom building, keep in mind you are truly doing this for yourself. Oftentimes because that cost of building, acquiring the land, prepping the land, water tap, sewer tap, wells, septic tanks, landscaping, all the extra things you got to pay for often pushes the price per square foot well above the areas typically selling for. That's why in most scenarios I tell people you're doing this for yourself. You're not going to be able to go flip this thing. And the chances of 2 years down the road you being able to sell it and hope for a profit are going to be tough. This is just my experience. So if this is your forever home, by all means, have a blast if you have that budget. But expect it to be a little bit more than you might have imagined looking into this. And again, if you're planning on selling in the next couple years, custom may not be for you. And for those of you that don't know who I am, my name is Brandon. My team and I of local real estate agents have truly been helping people from all over the country relocate right here to the Midlands of South Carolina, the Lexington, Columbia, and Lake Murray area. So don't hesitate to reach out. That way you don't have to go at this alone. HOA neighborhoods. This is probably one of the most heated debates that I see online. HOA versus non-HOA. I'm not here to tell you which one to pick, but look, if you don't want somebody telling you what you can and can't do with your house, then don't buy an HOA neighborhood. I mean, many have regulations of what fence you can put up, and they have an architectural review board that will need to approve your sheds, covered porches, pools, and any other addition. And of course, rules of things you can't do. Now, with that said, I've always said, here in South Carolina, my perspective has been, they're pretty mild. They're not too aggressive as I know states like California that I grew up in. Again, unless you're in one of those high-end $1 million neighborhoods. I mean, I haven't seen anybody come around and measure my lawn. They just expect you to take care of your house. I mean, we've personally added a in-ground pool, a screened-in porch, a pergola, and a lot more. Never had an issue with it getting approved. But again, if you have issues with getting approval from somebody just to put up a shed, an HOA not be for you. And to be honest, two things that catch people by most surprise coming from out of states is most don't allow above ground pools. And again, like I said, the restrictions on the fences. Now again, this can change over time. And that's another important thing to know about HOAs. Rules change. I mean, I've seen neighborhoods that once allowed short-term rentals and Airbnbs and then later banned them. Ones that did not allow above ground pools and now allow them. Rules change. And lastly, don't come into these neighborhoods and think you're gonna buck the system. In the state of South Carolina, HOAs can and will foreclose on your house, whether it's from not paying the dues or from fines building up that you refuse to pay because you just don't think it's right. As well, remember, if you do buy in an HOA neighborhood, you chose to buy in an HOA neighborhood. So don't be surprised if a majority of the neighborhood doesn't support you when you join the Facebook group and say you want to vote out the HOA. Just don't live in an HOA neighborhood. Non-HOA neighborhoods. Yeah, just like HOA neighborhoods might not be for certain people, non-HOA might not be for certain people as well. While we expect that everybody loves and cares about their house the way that we do, I can promise you not everybody does. Trust me, you'd be taken back by the things that I've seen while showing houses. And understand that you want to do whatever you want to your house, and that's why you chose to not live in an HOA. But trust me when I say, neither does your neighbor. So if it bothers you that someone likes to park broken down cars on their lawn, you should probably find an HOA neighborhood. Not saying that everybody does this, but what's stopping the neighbor from doing that? And if they don't do it now, if they sell their house and somebody else comes in, you don't know who's moving in. I mean, I talk to people that swear they don't want to live in an HOA neighborhood, but then we start looking at homes and they're questioning me why some of the neighbors just don't take care of their house. They don't maintain their yards, they park cars in their yard, and I remind them there is no HOA. I can't stop them. If that's what they want to do, they are entirely allowed to do it. And a lot of times they quickly reconsider their thoughts. Again, I understand that you don't want to be told what to do, but neither does everybody else around you. Older homes. So I hear it all the time. You're looking for a home with character. Homes that were built back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. They were built so much different back then. They don't feel quite as cookie cutter as the new neighborhoods. But one of the things I tell people to keep in mind when buying older houses, codes were not the same back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And especially here in South Carolina, some of the codes that were codes in your area might not have been codes here because there are local codes and national codes. So if a home inspection scares you, this might not be the house for you. For instance, I sold a house that was built in the 60s, and the buyers were freaking out because the home inspector notated that there were no GFCIs in the wet areas. And for those not familiar, you know those little push button things that you see in the kitchens and bathrooms to help prevent you from getting electrocuted? Well, my seller said back, unfortunately, this house doesn't even have ground wires. They weren't a thing back then. So of course there won't be GFCIs because it's just not realistic. That's right. This house only had 2-prong plugs throughout the entire house, no ground wires. And there's often what is called grandfather code issues, where the sellers are not required to update everything to current code. I've seen plenty of houses with window units, no central air, dated electric wires, electric panels, and piping that are now banned. And the chances of a seller spending thousands of dollars updating all this for you is not likely. So don't be surprised if you pick one of those older homes with character and your inspection sheet is quite extensive. I can't tell you how many buyers I had that reverted back to new construction after multiple home inspections made their head spin and start counting the dollars that they might be spending in the near future. Homes on more land. Now, not that there's anything wrong per se with them unless you get tired of yard work. Heard that one before. But keep in mind, with the rising prices, more land either means more rural or more money. I constantly get buyers asking, where are all the homes on 1 acre? Even new construction. And I promise you they do exist out there. They just might cost more than you are searching for. Or it might be out in the rural parts that you aren't considering. If you're looking at that lower price point, honestly, this is probably the biggest criteria where expectations haven't met reality when talking to people. To give you an idea, right now, the average price of active homes on 1 to 2 acres in the non-rural areas closer to Lexington, Irmo, Chapin, Columbia is right around $800,000. Sure, you can find some for less, but again, make sure your expectations are right. I tell all buyers when you're searching for a home and you just can't seem to find what you want, remove that top line budget so you can get a good idea if maybe it does exist, it's just right above your price point. And so with that said, if you're looking for a home on a budget, you might have to give up some of that land. Historic homes. So one of the most important things about historic homes, beyond what we talked about with older homes and the inspection, is if the historic homes are on the registry, they're often regulated. You can't always come in and do everything that you hope to do. There's often a board of advisors that'll come in and let you know what things you can change, and if you do change them, what they have to look like. They want to keep that historic vibe and don't want you doing modifications that would change that historic look. I mean, I personally listed and sold a house that was over 100 years old and had been featured on the bicentennial bike ride. And the seller told me he refused to join the historic registry no matter how many times they called him. Because most of the upgrades he had done to this house, he told me they would not have let him done and he was not okay with that. Established neighborhoods. I mean, who doesn't love tree-lined streets? I know a lot of you are seeking out these neighborhoods. You tell me all the time with those tree-lined streets. But we've learned in recent times when it comes to hurricanes, tornadoes, and storms, these are the neighborhoods that seem to be devastated the most. Whether it's trees falling on power lines or on top of houses, unfortunately. And look, I'm not trying to be the dad that shows up at the home inspection and just ruins the deal. But let's just be honest. This is reality in estates that's prone to severe storm. Funny story, going back, I did have a client whose dad worked in insurance and talked them out of a house because there were too many trees in the backyard and he saw too many claims because of trees falling on houses. Oh, and can I be honest with you about established neighborhood? And this kind of falls into that older home category too. If you look at a lot of the new construction builders we have around here, they've been around from the 50s and 60s. So let's be real. They probably built most of those houses too. Either way, I get the sentiment. The tree-lined streets really do set the tone. And with that said, funny story. I had a buyer that was insisted that they did not want new construction. Well, the wife didn't, because she said they all looked the same. Yet, she loved resale neighborhoods. Those tree-lined streets, exclaiming when we walked into one, see, this is not a cookie cutter neighborhood. Just look at this neighborhood. The husband and I had a laugh as we noticed, if you looked around, there were really only 3 designs in the neighborhood that the builder used back then. The trees just kind of hid that fact. She looked around, she saw her point, but she said it still feels different. So I get it. It can't hide the fact that every house looks the same behind all of those trees. In the end of the day, there's pros and cons to every single house. You gotta pick the house that makes most sense for you. I'm not here to push my opinions onto you because we are not the same. Again, I live in one, if not 2 of the categories that people tend to be most passionate about. A new construction house within an HOA. But my goal is to hopefully help you understand the pros and cons of these, so that way you can make that best decision. And hey, if you're still trying to figure out exactly where you want to live, you're gonna wanna check out this playlist here, where I actually break down the different areas around Columbia. Whether it is established neighborhoods in Irmo, new construction in Lexington, or historic homes in Columbia, so you can find what's right for you.